So I think I'm at the age now where I've experienced enough to know the things that I'm good at and the things that I'm not so good at. Of course, I think there's definitely so much room for learning still of like things that I haven't tried that I will figure out if I'm good at or not. But I think generally across the board, I know as an adult and a human kind of what my strengths are and what my strengths are not. Yet to have children and have a family and stuff, so I'm sure I'll learn a lot of things that I'm very bad at or very good at. But I think I have the general gist of me as a human and what I'm good at and what I'm not. I think within those things that I am good at, there are things that I have like tried very hard to be good at. And there are things that I've tried there are things that I've tried very hard to be good at. Some things that I see like, oh, it comes a bit more naturally. And there are some things where I'm like, no, girl, you've tried and it's not happening for you. Time to let it go. I think there are some things that I've realized, like maybe I'm genetically better at this. Maybe I'm better at this just because of my genetic makeup or like the way that I'm physically built. So yes, my genetic makeup. But I mean, I don't have an outstanding skill set in really anything, or like I said, discipline that I'm like genetically built for or good at. But I think that there are certain things that, my physique or my like upbringing, or like, I don't know, how my parents are, whatever, has like influenced me to be better or better set up in a certain situation to excel or better survive in certain situations. So yeah, I don't think like, if I'm being really honest, and I've actually like said this to myself before, and this is not in like a sad, like, or I'm the victim kind of situation. I genuinely think that there are like, I actually don't think that I'm like outstandingly great or like, exceptional at anything. I just think I have a really good attitude and approach to things, and I'm quite disciplined. And so this brings me to my topic for the day, which is passion versus genetics. And I was thinking really hard about this recently, about, like actually what gets you further in life? Like what is more useful to have? Is it to be passionate about something or to be genetically gifted or just genetically good at it? So yeah, I guess the reason, as I was saying, why I like consider this and think about it is because I don't personally think that I'm like exceptionally good at anything. I don't think I have like an exceptional like genetic gift that has like made me far superior in like a sport or like a topic or like ability to learn something. Just hasn't happened. I do think that passion and genetics are not mutually exclusive. Like, I definitely think you can be genetically good at something and also be passionate about it. Not always the case, but it can help. But I do think that there is like, and I was like kind of toying with the idea. I was like, but if you're genetically good at something, I feel like generally not everybody is passionate about it. And maybe it's a lower chance that you are passionate about it because you don't have maybe the awareness that of how special the gift is. Anyway, I'll dig into this further. I think some examples of like areas that people are like really genetically good at something, and where you can see like a clear example of like genetics versus passion. I think like the most easiest spaces to look are like the following. So I think sports. So sports, like I'm a huge sports fan. I've loved sports for like the longest time. I think it's because I grew up in a household where I wouldn't say my parents are like crazy active. Like they're not running marathons. Like they're not those people. But dad is like generally always been really active. I feel like just in his like job, but also just like generally. Like I wouldn't say he's like that consistent with actual exercise, but he does like to play sport. Mum also loves sport. I think she's like I think I would say our whole family like love spectator sports. Like we just are competitive people. Like if you put us in a room and we're playing like a random game, like we used to play like spoons a lot, where you have to like you play the card game and you have to try and like once you match the cards you pick up the spoon, and then the last person to pick up a spoon, because not enough for everyone, like gets a letter on their name, and it's eventually who spells out like spoons. first, but we used to be super competitive playing that. And so what I would say is like, we're not like, I think the only like really sporty person in my family is my sister. But other than that, like none of us are exceptional sporting people, but we do enjoy watching sport a lot. So we've loved sport from a young age. And honestly, you can turn on like darts at home and if there's nothing else to watch, like we'll get into it, which is kind of funny. I don't know how we got like that, but we do enjoy sports. So because I came from a household like that, I think growing up, I wasn't like naturally gifted with sports. I definitely was the kid that was trying, like, had like the A and B teams, always trying to get into the A team, was always just like, I feel like a scraggler that just got through, and was put in, not necessarily that great. Whereas my sister was like super amazing at sport from day dot, like just explosive power, such a great sprinter. Like she used to do the hurdles. This was crazy. I remember in like primary school, she was so good at hurdles. She made it to state and she didn't even try. Like the gal would just like sit around like laughing and then like what happened was one time in high school, Dad went to go watch her do this like race, which was, I think it was like house sports or whatever. Anyway, the starting gun went off and my sister missed it because she was laughing at something with her friends. Anyway, she missed it. Everyone had started running, but she still came back and she won the race. That's all I have to say. That's genetics, guys. This is what I mean. Genetics. Don't have it. But yeah, so my sister was super naturally gifted at sport. Like I think she was just like really good at picking up sports, very athletic. And I do think my family as a whole, we have a very athletic build. Like if you have seen my sister and I's calves, I would think to say I have a way bigger calves than her. I feel like she is still so petite. But I have quite large calves. Will you catch any of my family doing calf exercises at the gym? No, because we do not want to strengthen those calves any more than they already are. Like I remember I went to this ball once, people like commenting on my Facebook photo back then, being like, oh, calves, bruh. And I was like, it's not my fault. I just have naturally genetically gifted calves. So I think the one thing that I would say is I'm genetically gifted at is I have great calves. And I guess my height as well. So anyway, going back to my point is, yes, grew up in a very sporty household. Sister was super good at sport. I was not really naturally gifted. I feel like I only got better at sport like when I got older. And maybe it was like a mixture of like maturity and coordination at the same time. But I suddenly started to understand how to play sport properly, and not like be so subpar at it. Anyway, so I think if you look in the sporting world, there are so many examples, probably the biggest examples of like genetically gifted people. Like if you look at Rafael Nadal, who I absolutely love, and I'm very sad about him being injured in the Australian Open and having to pull out, so sad. But he was super good. I know he's super good at tennis, but he was also really great at football, soccer. So he actually could have chosen either way to go at that point, but he ended up choosing tennis. And all I have to say is like, is the average person able to choose between a football career or a tennis career? No. So that's where I say like he's definitely genetically gifted to be that good at sport and like multiple sports. Same for someone like Patrick Mahomes. I only know this because I've watched the Netflix show Quarterback, which is actually really good and I learned a lot. But honestly, like one of my favorite categories of TV is sports docu-series. If you hit me with a sports docu-series, like I will watch that over anything any day. I love sports and I love learning about like real life people. Anyway, Patrick Mahomes, super talented. He's a quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. Ew, who am I? I don't even watch American football, but look at me out here just spitting facts. Anyway, so he's the quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. And then in his story was actually saying he actually grew up playing like a lot of baseball because his dad was a baseball player and he was actually really good at baseball. So he had to choose between baseball and football at one point. And he chose football. But once again, like getting to that level where you're like so good at both sports is incredible. Like, and I just don't think you can do that without being like gifted with some sort of sporting talent or athleticism to be able to, I just think you're just built different from the get-go. Like, I just don't think the average person would be able to get to that level probably in both sports at such a young age. Another area that I think that genetics versus, this is a tricky one because I do think there's a point at which it's like a genetics a little bit and then it switches over to like the time that you learn that thing, but languages. So I think people who are bilingual are so much better at learning languages. But I also do think there are people who are genetically gifted to just learn languages and they're better at it. Like Alex, for example, he's really good at picking up just like languages in general. And I don't know if it's because, I think it's chicken and egg. I don't know if it's because he knows how to speak Mandarin fluently and is bilingual. And then that gave him the ability to understand languages better and be better at like picking up languages, like small parts of languages, or he was just from the outset just gifted to be able to speak multiple languages and be good at like languages in general. Because I feel like I have tried very hard at languages. I would say I've tried hard but not consistently. Might be the problem there, but let's just ignore that. I think that I have tried decently hard at languages, but I just don't feel like it doesn't stick as well with me. Whereas Alex will like live in a country and just like pick up up on the language very easily. Like he literally learned how to speak Cantonese because he was working in a company that they would have meetings in Cantonese, only some meetings in Cantonese. And then from listening to people speak in a meeting in Cantonese, he learned it and then he suddenly could speak it. And I was like, what the hell? Literally one day we got back to Hong Kong and he just started speaking Cantonese. I was like, since when? Before you didn't know. So I think it's like a gift. He's like got this extra ability to pick up on languages and absorb the vocabulary and memorize it and then like just like to understand it. For me, just doesn't come naturally. Like I think I'm really good at more. It's not a gift, not at all. I just think it's like I have really good like awareness and of body language and tone. So I think I use that a lot to understand different languages. Once again, not a gift, just I feel like that's just like me having good communication skills and awareness. And then I think the last thing is music. So I think being musically gifted is just like sport. I think like that is one of the things that you're either born with it or you're not. I do think like you can really like be a mediocre singer and work at it, but like to be musically like gifted, like Taylor Swift or like Charlie Puth, who doesn't produce good music, which is kind of sad to me. Like that's an ongoing debate in my head, but like he doesn't have good music, but he is like pitch perfect and has like an amazing voice. And just to be like, I mean, like Michael Jackson, obviously very problematic, but he is very musically gifted. Like he has an amazing genetic talent. He's like like 7 of them, and like the Jackson 5, the 5 brothers, and like and then some like 2 sisters or whatever. Anyway, I'm just saying he can sing the best out of all of them. He has that genetic gift. Same with like Beyonce. I mean, like all these huge artists, like they are all, I think, genetically gifted. They were born with this talent. They can sing, they can hear things differently, they can write songs differently. Like there's just something different about them. I do think you could probably acquire being a good singer for sure, but will you ever be as good as the person who's genetically gifted is my next question. So when I say like genetics versus passion, I do wonder like, yes, you can be genetically gifted at something, but do you think that you'd be better at that thing than somebody else that's really passionate about it? So I think there is something to say about people who are genetically gifted at things, right? And them not having maybe the perspective of how hard it is to build and create the skill, which creates this opportunity for people with passion to be better at it. So I think if you look at the sporting world, right, at different people, I think there are some people that I've come across that are super, super good at a sport genetically, So if we take Nick Kyrgios, for example, I think he's a great example because he is actually like, yes, he's trained hard since he was young, but I do think that he is also gifted with quite an awesome, like awesome height. Like genetically, he's perfect for tennis. He's got power, he's athletic, he's agile. But then I don't think personally that he has a passion for tennis. And I think he stated that quite obviously before, that like he's struggled with it and had many difficulties with like, you know, committing to training every day and all that. So that's why he doesn't train. But he can still go to like the Wimbledon and make it to the finals without training, without really like caring that much and seeming to not have a strong passion. But when you put him against somebody like Rafael Nadal or Djokovic or Federer, like they're genetically gifted, but they also have passion. So I think that I think the ultimate level is to be genetically gifted at something and be passionate about it. If you can be both those things, I think you will just like excel and like kick everybody's ass. But I think if you're just genetically gifted at something, it's not enough. I think you can easily be outrun and like outlasted by somebody who is passionate. And I do think people who are passionate about something can get further. Because, going back to my point, someone who's passionate about something but isn't genetically gifted in something knows how hard it is to build that skill and create that skill and like maintain that skill. And they've worked harder in a sense for it because they aren't naturally gifted at something. And so they have more grit and resilience to be like, that is what I want. I know I'm not the greatest at it, but I am so in love with this like sport. I'm so in love with seeing that I'm going to get there. And I think those people will definitely usually take more of a journey of being doubted a lot and probably having like, you know, a lot of, not haters, but like, I think like complete lack of recognition. Like people just like probably, there's like Neya, she's not particularly good at soccer, but she's here again. But that person, I think, has a lot of like naysayers to prove wrong. And I think you do see that nowadays in a lot of people who have been like winning things. Like Alex de Minaur has been playing really well. He's an Australian tennis player. He's been playing really well in the lead up to Australian Open. He beat like Djokovic, and like in his interview there, the people were like, oh, like who do you have to, I think he was like, someone asked him like, oh, who do you have to thank for this or whatever, and he was just like, everyone who didn't believe in me. Because I do think when people don't believe in you and people are like super against you, but you're super passionate about what you do, it's fuel to your fire. Like it gives you that fuel to like, to win, you know, to want to like prove yourself even more. Obviously it doesn't always work in that way. I think there are definitely situations where people like get that hate and then just like buckle, which is also natural. But I do think that people who are passionate about something but not gifted or genetically empowered do have a better chance, I think, than someone who's genetically gifted and not passionate about what they do. So I think for me, what this indicates to me is just like, I feel like it gives me motivation to keep going on things that I am interested in or I love to do, or like just have a general inclination towards, because I don't think that we can go through this world giving up on things that we're not good at because we were not built for it. Like I think this goes back to like where I started, which is that there are things that I'm good at and things that I know that I'm not good at. But there is also that added layer to that, which is there are things that bring you satisfaction that don't bring you satisfaction. But I think it's something that I'm not good at but brings you satisfaction. I would continue to do that because I think that's part and parcel of life, is trying things that you're not good at, having that challenge. And you're not always doing something because you're good at it or because you're validated of like how great you are as a person because you can do it. I think you do things as well to challenge yourself and grow yourself as a human. And so I know I've talked a lot about like kind of like more of a competition view of like, oh, if you're genetically gifted, you're better at it, blah, 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 blah. And I think that's the reality of it. And I think that's what I'm discussing. Like it is the reality of it. Someone who's genetically good at something and passionate about something is probably going to be better than you in that tennis game. But if you're passionate about it, then I do think that can get you a really long way with something, and you can really enjoy something. So all in all, I'm trying to say, like, don't be deterred by the fact that you are not naturally gifted or born with something. I think that passion can get you super far. Yeah, I think passion can get you super far. And I think about, so the other day in the United Cup, there was this tennis player playing from Serbia, and it really wasn't like nice to watch her tennis. She had a really interesting, choppy, like slice forehand. Her style of play wasn't that great. But you know what? I was like, yeah, you're not that like nice to watch, and like questionable playing style, but you're still here representing Serbia as an individual singles player. I 100% am telling you, you can watch her game and know that she's not naturally gifted, but you can tell she had a lot of passion for her sport. And so I think that that's proof, an example that, you know, if you actually are passionate and interested in something and you put in the hard work, you can get there. You can be at that top level, and just be yielding like a great amount of satisfaction from that sport or whatever you're doing. So my conclusion is that I do think if you have a good mentality towards something, and discipline and hard work / resilience, that you can definitely be good at anything that you do. I think it is important though to recognize that you're gonna have, like, where you are at, like, are you good at this sport naturally or not? Like, what is your situation against other people, especially if you're in a competitive sport? Okay, then, like, where am I positioned and where can I go, and how hard do I have to work to get to that level? I do think if you're genetically gifted but not passionate, it's not enough. I've seen so many people who are genetically really gifted with something but just don't have the interest or passion about it. It's not like you just because you're genetically good at it doesn't mean you're actually going to be like passionate about it, because a lot of people are good at something but it's like, okay, cool, I'm good at it, but I have no actual interest in it, which comes down to the whole, like, does it bring you joy? But lastly, I do think the optimal place to be is to be genetically good at something and be passionate about it. That is, like, if I could be Rafael Nadal, I'd be Rafael Nadal. I would totally just live his life. Maybe I could be Rafaela Nadal. That would be nice too. But anyway, the whole point of my topic today was just debating this whole passion versus genetics. What do you think? Do you think that you can be passionate about something and then be as good as somebody who is genetically gifted at something? Or do you think you're always on the back foot? Would love to hear your thoughts. Please comment in Peanut Butter Neya Time on Instagram, or in this podcast on Spotify, or on YouTube if you're watching live. Okay, well, thanks for listening. Bye.